and he was just incredibly mad. He was angry at his ex, was blaming his ex, was pointing fingers, saying, "This isn't fair." At the end of the day, he had an attempted murder charge against him and a restraining order and couldn't see his children because he caught his wife cheating on him and had picked up a hammer and attacked her boyfriend. So when he came in, as angry as he was, I said, "I can't work with you unless you're willing to take accountability for the fact of what you did. Nobody made you pick up that hammer. Nobody made you go into the bar. Nobody made you do those things. So unless you can take accountability and start working on changing yourself, I'm not working with you." And he took that and said, "Okay, I promise. If you represent me, I promise I will do all those things." And he dove head in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Law Firm Success Show. Now, today we're going to be talking to a law firm owner that I'll just tell you, I personally love this law firm owner. I've known her for a couple of years and have seen the amazing things that she's been doing. And what I love is the way that she's been creative about addressing some of those common challenges a lot of law firms face. I mean, from her creative idea with incorporating the life coaching and the junior associate program, which she'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's welcome our guest to the show. Welcome to the show, Heather. How are you?
Thank you. I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me. And I love you too.
I always tell when my team and I are having meetings, and a lot of times we're talking about like our marketing content, and we're like, okay, all right, let's be very clear on who we're making this for. I often ask my team in the Philippines, like, all right, you guys know our clients. If you had to pick one person you would make content for, who would you target? And our client success team is always, we should target Heather. Just like, so you are loved by the team as well.
That's awesome. That's like one of the best compliments, I think.
So for people who may not be as familiar with your firm and your background, can you tell us a little bit about your firm and how long you've been running the firm?
Sure. So I own O'Connor Family Law, which we are a divorce and custody law firm based out of Massachusetts. I became an attorney after going through my own divorce and realizing how horrible the process was. I was not an attorney at that point. In fact, I had never gone to school. So I had my high school diploma and 3 kids under the age of 6 when I decided I want to change the world. So back to school I went, eventually graduating from law school, opened my firm in 2016. And we have just had this amazing journey of growth and development and setbacks and climbing back up, and you name it, we've done it. And we're still doing it. So that's what brings us to where we are today.
Awesome. I love the honesty in that because I do think sometimes when you look at social media, you get like one of two things. You get the very worst of the worst stories. Here's my worst experience. I'm tired of doing this. Or you get the very overly optimistic and rosy story of, hey, I started doing this and we went from 0 to $50 million. And I'm like, there's something, I think reality happens somewhere in the middle. So I love the fact of your honesty. So I do want to ask about, as you said, there have been some setbacks, some things that you're trying to figure out. As you've gone over the years, what are like 2 areas where that you think, hey, this has probably been a challenge we had to figure out in our firm?
I think the first, I'll talk about the coaching that we have within our firm. Because when I went through my own divorce, that was something where I went through the process just feeling as though something was lacking. The attorney that I had talked about legal custody and physical custody and how you have to do this and how you're going to divide your assets. But nobody really focused on how do you create your life post divorce. And so part of going through that process and wanting to open my own firm is I wanted to bring that in and have a process for clients to go through where not only they're getting a really great result, but we're focused. What are the things that they need to do in order to change themselves so they don't just end up back up in that same pattern and potentially have to hire us again? And so with that, we introduced coaching. And it really started where we brought in somebody as a client support specialist to make sure that the clients were getting the experience that we were promising them. And then we got to the financial point where we could really focus her work on the coaching aspect, which I honestly believe when a client comes in and they're willing to focus on how they make themselves better and not just the legal result. If they're really willing to do the work on themselves, one, it helps keep their fees down because they're turning to a coach to get some of that hand holding support, as well as it actually puts us in a position to be able to, as attorneys, get them a better result. So for everyone, it's a win win. And so we were able to send her to a bunch of training in order to basically become a life coach and work with our clients one on one. We offer it completely complimentary to our clients. And she works with them on changing their viewpoint, how to communicate better, how to be more effective, and really works on how do we get you so when you're done and you sign that paper and the judge says, okay, you're done with court, how do we get you where your post litigation life is the one that you're really dreaming about?
Wow, that's a very important point, and I think that is probably why your firm is doing so well. I think of you can really see the experience from the client's perspective because I will say I talk to a lot of family law attorneys and I don't think as many of them think about what is my client's life going to be like after this trial is over, when they're trying to pick up the pieces of their life or they're trying to build the life that they want post trial. I don't often hear too many law firms think about that. So I guess what really encouraged you to go down that path to say, hey, you know what, we're willing to invest in this idea to make it a part of how we operate?
I always had this idea there had to be something more. And I did a lot of work on myself after my own divorce to get myself to a mindset where I could do everything that I wanted to do. And it was a case that I had while I was working for another firm where the man came in and he was just incredibly mad. He was angry at his ex, was blaming his ex, was pointing fingers, saying, this isn't fair. At the end of the day, he had an attempted murder charge against him and a restraining order and couldn't see his children because he caught his wife cheating on him and had picked up a hammer and attacked her boyfriend.
Wow.
So when he came in, as angry as he was, I said, I can't work with you unless you're willing to take accountability for the fact of what you did. Nobody made you pick up that hammer. Nobody made you go into the bar. Nobody made you do those things. So, unless you can take accountability and start working on changing yourself, I'm not working with you. And
Wow.
he took that and said, okay, I promise. If you represent me, I promise I will do all those things. And he dove head in, and I truly believe that when we take on the title counselor of law, as much as we are advising and representing in the legal atmosphere, there is that counseling aspect. And none of us are therapists. We're not, I'm sure there's somebody out there, but nobody in my firm are actual therapists. But it became this amazing process and journey for him where I saw him go from somebody who just wanted to point fingers, just wanted to say it was somebody else's fault, to he fully took that on. And we ended up, it was a long contested case, but we walked away at the end of a trial. He had sole legal and physical custody. He kept the house. He kept most of his retirement. She had to pay part of my attorney fees. And this was going back, I don't know, over a decade, probably longer. And now his kids are grown up and they have had an amazing life. And it is that makes me realize how important it is. As much as I want to sit there and be like, oh, I'm such an amazing attorney, I got the best results ever. I could not have gotten that without him doing the work. And that is why it's so important.
Wow. I absolutely love that. And I think it definitely reiterates like how much you really do care about your clients. And I think that unfortunately a lot of law firms don't really look at, hey, how their client, the shape that their client is in emotionally, mentally, when they show up in court does impact how you as a lawyer are able to work with them, how you're able to represent them, and it does have an impact on their case. So I'm so glad that you and your team looked at that. And I know I said in the opening we would talk about the life coaching piece and we talk about the junior associate. What I will say is, I know that you do some speaking engagements and you're out there, you're doing great work. There's also some great stuff you do on social. So I would say, if people want to learn more about what you guys did with the life coaching or what your junior associate, like where can they follow you online to see, hey, where are you going to be speaking next, or what other podcasts are you going to be on?
Sure. So I'd say probably the best way to follow everything is just follow me personally on Facebook. You'll be able to find my farm. You'll be able to find everything else that we're doing, including all our other socials. And I'm at Heather OC 92576.
Okay, awesome. I love it. I love it. And then I would say, before we wrap up, this was a question that my team wanted to make sure that I ask you. They were like, Terrell, you have to ask Heather this question. So, when it comes down to you working with the TLTurner group, like how has that experience been for you?
All right, so we've had the worst experience ever with bookkeepers since I started this firm in 2016. It has been one of those things where I'm like, you hire people to pay them to do a job and they make your life worse. Ever since working with you guys, it has been this complete weight lifted off our shoulders. We can trust the numbers. Everything happens on time. You're super clear with the information that you need, guiding us through what it all means. So for me and your team, I can't thank you guys enough, because you have taken one of the worst areas of running a law firm and actually made it, I don't know if you can say figures are enjoyable, but you've made that process enjoyable.
We will take that. Is a huge compliment. We'll take it. Everyone who's listening, we'll put Heather's information in the show notes because I think that there is so much more to learn from Heather. I'm consistently telling lawyers that I meet, hey, you need to pay attention to the O'Connor law firm because there's some great stuff that they're doing. And I think you can learn by just watching and seeing someone who is trying different stuff, figuring out what works, changing the stuff that didn't work, and then keeping the stuff that did work and doubling down. So I am super excited for you. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Law Firm and Finance Show, where we give you great content that helps you build a more successful law firm. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on all platforms and follow us for more content.